Hi and welcome. My name is Kevin. I am the founder of Behavior Shift, a fee only registered investment advisor based in California. Our financial planning firm is focused on helping individuals and families navigate their financial lives through biblical comprehensive planning. At Behavior Shift, our foundation is built around biblical principles, comprehensive financial planning, and community accountability. Stewardship requires us to manage these gifts wisely, recognizing that they are not ours to hoard, but tools for building God's kingdom and serving others. True financial planning goes beyond numbers, and it requires addressing the behaviors and attitudes that drive financial decisions. Accountability fosters discipline and resilience. A supportive community provides encouragement, wisdom, and counsel. And yes, there are Christians here in California. Today, we will walk through the foundation of the framework I've created. This framework is designed to help you manage the resources you've been given with biblical principles. Our topic for today is eliminating debt. Let's read through some guiding verses. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. First Timothy chapter 5 verse 8. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Matthew chapter 6 verse 25. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Psalm 37:21. The wicked borrows but does not pay back, but the righteous is generous and gives. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 27 and 28. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again tomorrow, I will give it, when you have it with you. Romans chapter 13 verse 8. Owe no one anything except to love each other, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. Debt is one of the most normalized realities in modern life in our society today. For many people, borrowing money is not viewed as dangerous or even unusual. It is simply assumed to be part of adulthood. Car payments, student loans, credit cards, financing plans, buy now, pay later programs have become woven into everyday culture. Society encourages people to satisfy desires immediately, instant gratification, and postpone the consequences until later. Yet, Scripture presents a far more cautious and sobering picture of debt. While the Bible does not teach that all borrowing is automatically sinful, it consistently warns that debt carries spiritual, emotional, and practical dangers that can quietly enslave a person over time. Jim Newheiser in Money, Debt, and Finances explains that debt is often rooted in presumption, fueled by discontentment, and accompanied by consequences that affect far more than a person's bank account. Debt is not merely about numbers. It never is, it never was. It is ultimately about worship, wisdom, and trust. Debt often begins with a heart problem. One of the clearest themes throughout Scripture is that financial decisions reveal the condition of the heart. Jesus taught that where a person's treasure is, there their heart will be also. Because of this, debt cannot be merely be analyzed mathematically. It must also be examined spiritually. Newheiser argues that many people fall into debt not through one catastrophic decision, but through many small compromises made over time. Debt accumulates gradually while people live under the assumption that the future circumstances will somehow solve present problems. Borrowing often becomes a way to obtain immediate comfort without the discipline of waiting. Underneath this pattern are deeper heart issues: discontentment, impatience, fear of missing out, desire for status, and lack of trust in God's provision. People frequently borrow because they believe they must immediately possess something they cannot yet afford. That's the entire premise of payments. You can't afford this one thing, hence, you have to make payments. Instead of practicing contentment and delayed gratification, they attempt to create a lifestyle that their current financial reality cannot sustain. That is why debt is often presumptuous. Borrowing assumes that the future will cooperate with our plans. It quietly says, I will make more money later. The economy will stay strong. I'll figure it out eventually. It'll all work out. Nothing bad ever happens to me. But scripture reminds us that human beings do not control tomorrow. Proverbs teaches that man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9. Jobs are lost, businesses fail, recessions occur, unexpected suffering enters life without warning. Newheiser points to economic downturns such as the great financial crisis in 2008, the collapse during the 2020 pandemic, to show how quickly financial confidence can disappear. Many individuals and businesses borrowed heavily, believing prosperity would continue indefinitely, only to discover they were completely unprepared when hardship arrives. And it does come. That exposes how fragile self reliance truly is. At its core, excessive debt often reveals a heart searching for security, comfort, or identity outside of God. Debt produces bondage and burdens. The Bible repeatedly warns that debt creates a form of slavery. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 states, "The borrower becomes the lender's slave." Newheiser explains that while modern borrowers may not enter literal debtors' prisons, debt still controls people's lives in powerful ways. Monthly payments become obligations that restrict freedom, consume income, and reduce flexibility. Debt quietly changes how people live. Income that could have supported family needs, generosity, ministry, saving, or investing instead goes toward interest payments. Borrowed money makes nearly everything more expensive because the borrower pays not only for the item itself, but also for the cost of financing it. Ironically, people often pursue debt hoping to improve their lifestyle, but debt usually reduces lifestyle over the long term. What initially feels like freedom eventually becomes pressure. But debt also creates emotional and spiritual burdens. People living under excessive financial obligations often experience anxiety, stress, and fear about the future. Sleep is lost over payments. Emergencies become devastating. Financial decisions become reactive rather than wise and intentional. And as debt grows, margin disappears. And when margin disappears, peace often disappears with it. Newheiser also highlights how debt can damage relationships. Financial instability frequently strains marriages, delays opportunities, limits generosity, and reveals patterns of impulsiveness or lack of self control. Debt can even trap people in unhealthy jobs or prevent them from making important life transitions because their obligations leave them with few options. This is why debt is not spiritually neutral. Debt disciples people toward dependence on creditors instead of dependence on God. The more deeply a person becomes entangled in debt, the more their life revolves around servicing obligations rather than stewarding freedom. Debt freedom requires both wisdom and worship. Although scripture warns strongly about debt, Newheiser carefully avoids legalism. And I'm speaking of Jim Newheiser. I have his book. This is the book that I'm taking a lot of this information from. He explained that borrowing itself is not always sinful. There are situations, such as purchasing a home, where borrowing may be practical or even necessary for many families. The issue is not merely whether debt exists, the issue is why the debt exists and whether it reflects wisdom or foolishness. Some debt flows from sinful motives like covetousness, impatience, greed, laziness, or intentional dishonesty. Other debt may result from difficult circumstances, limited resources, or major life necessities. Because of this, Christians must approach debt with humility. wisdom and caution rather than simplistic rules. The solution to debt, therefore, is not merely financial strategy, it is heart transformation. Freedom begins when a person learns contentment in God rather than in possessions. It grows when fear of the future is replaced by trust in God's provision. It deepens when people stop using debt to create identities or lifestyles that they cannot sustain. Practical wisdom matters greatly. Stopping unnecessary spending, avoiding new debt, creating a realistic budget, building emergency savings, and systematically paying down obligations. But lasting change only happens when worship changes first, and that comes from a changed heart. A person who still believes money, comfort, or status will provide peace will eventually return to the same patterns. The gospel offers something better. And the gospel is the answer to all our problems. Debt serves as a powerful reminder of a far greater debt humanity could never repay, the debt of sin before a holy God. Yet, through Christ, believers have been forgiven fully and freely. Because of him, Christians are no longer slaves. That spiritual freedom reshapes financial stewardship. It changes how we view, how we look at life, how we manage the resources we've been given. Eliminating debt is not ultimately about becoming wealthy, it is about becoming free. Free to do what? Free to give generously, free to obey faithfully, free to live with margin, and free to worship God without divided loyalties. The goal is not merely financial independence. The goal is wholehearted dependence upon God. I leave you with this. Galatians chapter 5 verse 1. For freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm therefore and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. See you in the next one.